some people sort of discovered a new reality, and some people are still sort of confident about the future. That we too are, you know. Everybody's talking about all the way it's going and the decadence and the rest of it, but nobody's really, not many people are noticing all the good that came out of the last 10 years, which is the moratorium and the vast gathering of people in Woodstock, which is the biggest mass of people ever gathered together for anything other than war. Before, nobody had that big an army that didn't kill somebody or have some kind of, you know, violent scene like the Romans or whatever. And even a Beatle concert was more violent than that, you know, and that was just 50,000.
I think by now it's fairly safe to assume that John Lennon was what we call a genius. He certainly followed the script wrought by previous giants with his lonely childhood, dreamy nature, and rebellious disposition. The unexpected death of his free-spirited mother, too, sad as it was, probably helped round off the edges of his character, chiseled so assiduously by the matronly Auntie Mimi Smith. Still, there is nothing so common as unrequited talent, so it's definitely a measure of his drive and ambition that John was able to jump over his stodgy middle-class environment and land foursquare at the blustery heights of international stardom. What was really wonderful about the guy was the way his work was so intimately and personally assimilated by his legions of fans around the world. John was a homegrown musician from suburban Liverpool, whose musical and lyrical thought processes were somehow almost completely simpatico with kids everywhere. No small feat. Even time, it seems, hasn't diminished the impact or solidarity of his vast body of work. Equally as potent as his music, of course, were his thought-provoking words. Before being pushed into introspection by Bob Dylan's early recordings, Lennon didn't really pay too much attention to lyrics. But from then on, to John anyway, the message was the medium and the music just a seductive roller coaster to help bring the message home. As early as 1972, Lennon acknowledged his primary musical objective was putting out newspapers on what he was thinking at any given moment. The pinnacle of that philosophy was, of course, the preachy, often maligned Sometime in New York City LP. The cornerstone, however, was quite simply Lennon's big mouth, which he so charmingly shot off at every opportunity since almost the day he hooked up with the inscrutable Yoko Ono. It's been said that no couple since John and Jackie Kennedy were as widely chronicled on film and audio tape. That being said, time has done an excellent job of reducing the mountain of John's engaging chat down to the appealing molehill that I present to you today. The year when John consciously decided to use his celebrity to put forward an agenda, something virtually unheard of today, with celebrities only rarely daring to possibly offend their audiences with any sort of intelligent opinion, even if they were capable of it. But as we well know, John wasn't anything if not bold, and he proved the point again and again by deliberately bearding the media lion in its den with his committed views on peace, war, drugs, art, sex, and life in general. Here then is a tiny handful of the remaining consciousness of John Lennon, which hasn't yet been eroded by time or greedily locked away by the self-interested, self-appointed protectors of John Lennon's cultural legacy.
This tour is going to be all too short for your fans here. And the next thing we'll see of the Beatles is the film.
The film, yes.
Now, tell us about the film. We haven't heard a great deal about it.
Well, you know, it's us sort of meant to be acting, which we can't. But they've got a good director, you know, so they sort of almost make you act. You know, they cut it so well. You know, you do about an hour's rubbish, and he takes a minute out of it, and it looks as though you're doing quite well.
Now, is it an ad-lib film? Did you just go onto the set and carry on, or is there a storyline?
Some of it was ad-lib. Some, you know, they definitely had a script. It was written by Alan Owen, who writes good TV scripts.
Yeah.
And, well, we changed a lot, but it was a bit of trouble for the established actors because we wouldn't give them the tagline, you know.
Well, Wilfred Bramble, of course, Stepchild,
Yeah.
he was in the movie with you. Did he have any problems with you as a group carrying on like this?
Just the first, till we got to know him, you know, but he's one of, you know, one of those good people that can fit in anywhere, and he fits in good. Yeah. And he sort of got, you know, we found our level.
Had you a chance to get to know him or vice versa?
Oh yes, we got to know him. Well, we were on it for about 8 weeks, you know, you do get, and he's in it throughout the film. And we got to know him well, you know, he's a laugh.
Now, in some of the press and television interviews you did yesterday, someone said to you, "Are you religious?" I think it was you. I said no. Now, does this mean you don't believe in God, or you don't believe in religion?
Well, you know, we settled for calling ourselves agnostics because we don't, you know.
Yeah. And another question you were popped yesterday was about sport. Now, Australia's a great sport-loving nation. I think a lot of people may have been a little bit upset by your answer that you didn't like sport.
Well, we can't be everything to everybody, you know, at all times, or whatever they say. We're agnostic about sport, too.
What about when you were young, when you were kids, in Liverpool? Did you pursue any sport then?
Oh, yes, when you're a kid. I mean, it's not sort of a big, it's just something to do. And we used to play football, and I did when I was about, gave it up at 14, you know. That's when you discover the other things, isn't it?
Well, I was talking to Mamie on the plane coming over, and she said that when you were young, you were very serious. You did a lot of writing as an 8-year-old, and some of the stuff in your book, actually, she said you'd written when you were 8. Is this right?
Well, no, she got it wrong there, Mimi, didn't you, if you're watching? No, I was never serious. I was serious about writing, you know, although I laughed when I wrote it. But she means serious in as much as I said, keep it and stop throwing it away,
yes.
You know. But I was never serious.
Well, how did you meet up with the rest of the boys? You've known them all for quite a long time.
I met Paul when I was about 16, I think. I was playing with this group at a church social, agnostic church social, and he just came up to watch. And he knew somebody that I knew, and they introduced us, and he knew the words to one of the songs that I didn't know. I said, "Do you want to join the group?" And he did. And then George came about a year later, you know.
And when did you meet up with Ringo then?
Ringo, we met in Hamburg. He was playing with another group. And, you know, we thought we'd liked his style, but we'd only just got at the other drummer, so we couldn't do anything about it. But when we got the chance, we did.
Well, now the four of you are back together in Australia. Obviously, the reunion yesterday was a very happy one for all concerned.
Yes.
I think the three of you had missed him. This is the impression I've gotten all along, that there was something missing, or there seemed to be, and it was obviously Ringo.
Yeah, well, it's bound to be. We've been together now, you know, all that. And it is funny when one of you is missing, even though Jimmy did well. You know, obviously it's not the same as the four of you together.
The crowds gave Jimmy a wonderful reception in Adelaide.
They did, they were very good.
But then when I think it was Paul, or was it you, said that Ringo was coming, they went wild, and then they quietened down because they realised they wouldn't sing.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yes. Now, getting back to your book for a moment, you've been compared to many famous writers. How do you feel about this?
Well, it's flattering, you know. I haven't heard of half of them. I've heard of some of them, you know. But it's just good, you know. I don't mind who they compare it with.
And what gave you the idea to compile all the stuff you had and publish it?
Well, I'd got these odd bits, you know, sort of hanging around the house. And then we did these weeks in different seaside resorts in England. And we were stuck in the hotel like we are now. And so I just started doing more than I would normally, till it seemed it was piling up, you know. Then I started doing drawings to go with it. And then I sort of forgot about it. And then I met this American who was a writer. And I was talking to him, and he said, well, you know, let's have a look. And he showed it to a publisher, and they said, oh, stick it together, and we got a book, and that was it.
And it's just been released in Australia.
Released is the right word.
It certainly has. Has your picture on the front, and I guess, do you think your fans will buy it because it's your book and understand it? Do you think there's much hope of expecting it?
Well, this was a sort of problem in England. The publisher thought the fans would buy it. I wasn't sure, you know. I just thought some of them would buy it, because some, you know, they're not all stupid, you know, most of them are at school still. So at school your brain's more active normally than it is when you've got left school and gone to work and gone, you know, in the factory now, isn't it? So I thought it'd be a fifth form kind of thing, you know, but it...
And it has been well received then by the teenagers who've walked.
Yes, they understand it. I get a lot of letters written in that sort of, you know, back to me in the same kind of language.
Well, critics have been saying it's sick.
Well, I mean... Some of it is sick, you know, so what? There's a lot of sickness about it, isn't there?
happened in Australia.
Yes.
Does it upset you or the boys? Do you feel that you suffer because of this?
Oh, you don't suffer. We're bound to be a bit less healthy than people who breathe air. But I mean, there's so many good things, you know, to make up for it. You know, who's moaning? Me.
Now, when this tour is over, then you'll have a bit of a chance to get out and get some air, as you say, with your family.
I'm not sure, you see, because it's when the tour finishes, we go back and do the premiere of the film. It's one of those periods that Brian says, I'm not quite sure what we've got. And it all sort of fills up gradually with TV and radio. So.
Now, you mentioned Brian. I was going to mention it. How did you get associated with Brian Epstein, and how much do you feel you owe him?
Well, we owe him 1 and 6 exactly, but we owe a lot of our success to him, you know, a great deal.
Yes.
Because I think we might have been able to make hit records because we would have written the songs anyway. This one's run out, and but we wouldn't have gone. We wouldn't have. He controlled us, you see. Anybody that tried to manage us earlier on couldn't get through to us, you know. They'd lost about a week, and we said, we're not having you.
So he's more or less gotten you and taken full control of
Yes,
it.
but he didn't take over as some people do, right, as if he just sort of walked in and said, right, cut your hair like that, put this suit on, any of that. You know, we were already there. We just people sort of said we were dirty, or we weren't dirty, we were just in jeans because we couldn't afford anything else, you know.
A lot of people have said that Epstein has emerged as a genius of show business. Do you agree with this?
Well, I'm a bit odd, you know, I don't like using the word genius, but there's so many geniuses on LP covers and things like that, that I think he's done more than anybody expected him to do, which entitles people that don't know what's happening to call him a genius. He's very good. I wouldn't say he's a genius.
I want to ask you one direct personal question. Is he a friend?
Oh, definitely. You see, we can't get on with anybody for a long time unless they are a friend, because we're so closely knit.
Well, I've noticed this with the others in your entourage. How many of them are really very close to you?
Well, Neil, he's our personal road manager. Well, he was in from the start. He went to school with Paul and George. And the other fellow, Derek, we've known for about a year. But he's sort of one of those people that clicked as soon as you meet him, you know. So that, and Malcolm, we've known from the Cavern. He carries the guitars round, you know, and all that. Well, he used to work at the Cavern, the big bouncer, throwing all the teddy boys out. You know.
Well, John, I've said it 100 times already to you, but I hope you have happy memories of your Australian trip when you get home and can think about it.
Thank you, Malcolm.
And
we will do.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. John Lennon, we in Stockholm are always very glad to say welcome to a young author from Liverpool. In fact, you are the first author from Liverpool I've ever seen.
Great.
But your first book sold in 350,000 copies and came out this year. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. And tell me, you brought 3 of your friends. Could you please introduce
Yes, there's
them?
George Parasol, Ringo Stone, and Paul Machamley.
And did they have anything to do with your book? Did they help you or did they hinder you in any way?
No, they typed it out for me.
That's right. I mean, they can spell and you...
Oh, they spell very greatly.
That's nice. By the way, I read a review about it in Times Literary Supplement, and then I read the book. And then I wonder, are you influenced by Thurber or James Joyce?
None of them.
None
James
of them.
Stewart.
No. James Stewart.
James Stewart and
I
Betty
see.
Grable.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I'm quite sure that our Swedish viewers would like to hear you read one of your poems.
Right.
Good.
Good dog, Nigel.
Yeah?
Half he goes, I met his sight, our little hairy friend. Half upon the lamppost bright.
Don't like that.
Half in round the bend.
This one's better.
Is that better?
Look.
Ja, vad John Lennon säger och vad hans kompisar säger, det må de som kan liverpoolska.
How do you like to remember, as a guitar-strumming Beatle or as a writer, as a satirist?
I don't mind whether I remember it or not, honest. Yeah.
Where do you draw your inspiration from? Do you, for instance, draw inspiration for satire from things that happen around you when you're a Beatle, some of the absurd things, for instance, the Lord Mayor's reception and so on?
Well, I wouldn't use the whole thing like the Lord Mayor's reception, but I could use 1 or 2 things that people like that would say, or just somebody, the way they looked. If, somebody looked a bit funny to me, but I could imagine them only not there, somewhere else, and write about them in a completely different situation.
Well, do you meet the kind of people you'd like to meet?
Occasionally.
Always.
You don't always. Of course you don't. Well, you don't, do you? No, but I mean, you know, we occasionally do. We've got friends of ours, and so friends are the people you like to meet. Works, isn't it? So, you know, we meet our friends. Sounds a bit daft, we meet our friends, but, you know, that's true. We do get to meet the people we want to meet. And we meet people on tours like this that we like, and we get to know them. If there's anyone we especially like, you know, we'll always sort of make arrangements to see them again, sort of thing. There's always ways of getting to know people you like. I mean, it's not, we're not protected to that extent.
And how important is your drawing to you, your artwork? You wanted to be at one stage an artist.
Yes, but as usual, I wanted to be the wrong one. I wanted to be a painter, which I was lousy at. The only thing I could do was this kind of work. But I insisted on taking painting.
Some of these drawings look as if you're preoccupied with abnormalities.
Well, I'm not really. It's just that they're not very abnormal.
Physical abnormalities.
Yeah, well, my earlier drawings when I was about 18 or 19 were really abnormal, you see. So I think they're quite normal. They might look abnormal now, but they're not. They're quite clean and fresh, I thought. Healthy people.
Clean and fresh spirit of scepticism in all this. Are you naturally sceptical of things and of people and situations?
Probably, yeah.
Do you think people have a tendency to underestimate you, to think that you're barely articulate and that you don't have a mind because you're a Beatle?
They might have. Yeah, I think they did for quite a time, but now they expect more. I mean, some press conferences, they'll just come in and sit down and wait for us to be witty about nothing, you know. But they won't even talk sometimes. They think we're going to give a show. So it's not all roses.
Is this why you play around a lot in your press conferences?
Well, no, we play around a lot if there's just nothing happening, you know, we just mutter to ourselves. But it's usually the best playing around is when there's some good people there asking questions, you know. But if there isn't, what can you do? You know, sitting there waiting for you to entertain them when you can't, you know, because we can only work if we've got sort of straight man, as we call them. And somebody's got to ask us something for us to say anything sort of a bit funny. You can't just go in sort of, well, over the room.
How much are you protected, actually? I mean, what are you doing tonight?
Well, probably nothing, but I just don't want to do anything tonight. If I wanted to do anything, what is there to do? You know, go out to the pictures or something, which I don't fancy anyway. You know, but that's the thing, I don't really want to do anything now. Somebody asked me if I wanted to go sightseeing, but I can see quite a lot from me, from this window.
Well, do you meet the kind of people you'd like to meet?
Let's meet the Beatles. I've got Paul and John.
John.
And Paul's talking to George and Ringo. Well, I said in my intro, and you were listening to it, that there have been a lot of changes since this time last year. Well, we've seen them, you know, we've seen you making films and doing all sorts of marvellous things, but what have the changes meant to you?
Nothing really. I think the main changes are in people's attitudes to you.
How?
I don't know. But it's people who change rather than you. You know, we feel exactly the same, really. Got a new suit, though.
But you've made a film since then, and you just finished it.
Yeah.
Why did you make a film?
Well, it's a logical step, isn't it? And I believe it's quite lucrative. I believe.
Anyway, someone asked us.
Yeah, we were asked to do it. We said, yeah. And Alan Owen wrote it, and we changed it, and we're all happy.
It's called A Hard Day's Night.
Hard Day's
Night. At your local
Night.
cinema now.
Not now.
Not now. Soon.
Did you prefer this time last year, or do you really like a big time?
I like whatever's happening at the moment.
Yeah, there's good in both of the stages. You know, it was great then, and it's lovely now.
Despite whether people are rude or not.
Oh, I take that.
What do you think about people who maybe, you know, didn't like you then or said something nasty or just didn't bother about you then, but are terribly nice to you now?
Well, we didn't bother about them then, you know.
We don't bother about them now.
Do you know something?
What?
I believe it.
Yeah, it's true.
What difference is there since last June up to now? What sort of things have happened to you since then?
The main difference is that we've got more money and less time to ourselves. You know, everything's speeded up and we're just running around like mad.
And which of the two would you prefer to have?
Well,
more money or less time?
More money and less time, I think.
If you ever manage to get away from the crowds, what sort of things do you like to do?
Sleep, see films, go to nightclubs, drive my car, and that's it. Play records, watch TV,
What sort of
just
records?
ordinary things.
What sort of records do you like doing?
Listening to all my records are sort of American ones. People who you probably haven't heard of.
Thank you.
Arthur Askey, Bert Whedon.
Do you find any difficulty in keeping up your public image?
No. What image? It's our image is just us. You know, as we were. We didn't try and make an image. It just happened, and so we don't have to keep it up. We just remain ourselves. Don't we, Ringo?
Well, we do. I mean, the other two were worried about.
You write very good songs, don't you?
Thank you. Thank you.
How do you write songs?
Well, you know, we just depend. Sometimes we write them on old pianos and anything that's lying around, you know, old tramps.
Doesn't do the piano any good, does it?
No, it's murder getting into the recording studio. I've got a song, George, on a great big piano. But guitars and things, you know, normally we sit down and try and bash one out sort of thing. But then again, there's no formula, because he can come up with one day completely finished. We still say we both wrote it though.
When did you start writing songs?
I was about 2, I think. I wrote, "Pass me the bread, mother." Something like that.
No, it's more like when you were
about 13 or 14. Yeah. When I got a guitar.
Writing them seriously?
What's the one you wrote? Down at that pen. Real funny songs then. Mine was "I Lost My Little Girl."
Did you know each other when you were 13?
Yeah, that's when we met.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us about the meeting.
At Wilton Village Fete.
I was playing at a garden fete in the village where I lived, or
playing
just outside Liverpool.
Just
playing with a group, you know, the skiffle group. And he came along and we met. And
I knew one of his mates, you know, Ivan, was a mutual mate.
Complicated.
Hey, mutual mate of ours, and he introduced us and things.
In those days, has your attitude to fans changed since then?
No, there's just more of them to watch.
But they all scream when they're listening to you.
Yeah, but we love that, you know.
Do you really?
Yeah, really, because it, like in Edinburgh, you know, I mean, you know, it's Glasgow tonight.
Yesterday, last week.
I shouldn't have said that, you know, I don't know, I've lost track of time. Anyway, the atmosphere in the theatres, really, it's marvellous, you know, must come.
I will do, I'll try to come.
Good.
John, about your book.
Joe.
How did you go about writing this book?
Well, sort of pen and paper and that. And that's about
And
it.
words, too.
I just sort of wrote it, you know, as a hobby.
Is this a stage that you went through, writing in this sort of garbled language that you have got out of now, have you?
No, there's a lot of it quite new. Although either more polite or more rude, you know, one extreme to the other. Where's he gone? Classic.
What's the most interesting person that you've ever met? I should say, who's the most interesting person you've ever met?
John Lennon.
George?
Harry Seacombe, I think. Harry Seacombe, yeah, he's great, I like him.
Is that the kind of person that you like?
Yeah.
Have you ever been frightened of your fans? A time when they've really frightened you?
Only...
Paul's frightened me a few times.
Only times when... getting in and out of places, when there's thousands of them all together. But when you usually only meet about the most 6 or 7, you know, if you were sort of running along the road, and then there's not enough of them then, is there, to sort of make you
don't mind that so much?
No.
Do you never feel lonely sitting at the back?
No, that's where I am, you see. The drummers should always be at the back.
Drummers should be heard and not seen.
Ringo, how do you feel about sitting playing on stage and being showered with things like jelly babies, boots, girls, things like that?
Well, I'm lucky being at the back, you know. The other three have it worse than I do, but sometimes it's a bit of a drag.
It's not much fun, actually.
You know.
No, Geoff, it's done.
Yeah, because if actually we've had things hit us in the eye,
it's very hard.
And if you're listening, don't throw them in your eye. It's dangerous, you know.
Bad.
You get it
Hello,
out.
boys. How you doing?
Hello, chap. How you doing?
You can get up now.
I pronounce you man and weight. It feels quite comfortable out here. Too short though? Because my hair's standing on end. It's quite easy to get used to. It's full of sand and all rubbish, you know. It looks quite normal at night when I comb it, if I can get my comb through it. You know, you wouldn't know it wasn't just the back's short and no sideboards. You're asking me where we are. Well, you know, as far as I know, we're somewhere in Spain. It could be anywhere for all I know, actually. And it's just like a... I don't know, it's like a dump, really. It's like the moon, you know, just desert and sand and hills and mountains. But not very nice to look at, but the weather's okay, now and then. Well, dramatic's a good word. First role, really. The others were just messing about. Well, sometimes it comes hard and sometimes it comes easy, you know. It depends on the day. Well, some of it's natural. The most unnatural bits are hard, you know, the ones that are really out of character from me. And but it's all right, you know. It's not the be-all and end-all. I think I'd do limited amounts of stuff. Because I am limited in what I could do. No, I don't. But I don't want to be trying myself out in films. It's too public. Well, I didn't think about it because I was always writing. Just sort of naturally. It's really trying my wings. Well, it's a private soldier called Gripweed. He's not particularly nice. No, but he's not too horrible. He's just looking after himself all the time. That's the main thing. Well, none really. See, we don't really have much of a relationship. No, we're not fighting or anything. We don't sort of have a lot to say directly to each other. And well, I'm Michael Crawford's Batman. He's Officer Goodbody. And I'm meant to look after him, you know, but I spend most of the time not looking after him and trying to dodge it. Yeah, it's a bit like that. Oh, I know, we got it in Britain too.
You got it here too. That's a luck one.
Oh yeah, that's just the usual army term for the fella that crawls about looking after the officer. You know, yes sir, no sir, certainly sir. There's Lee Montague and there's Jack Headley, Roy Kinnear. Now let me think. Michael Horton, of course, yeah, and Ronnie Lacey, he's a great lad. They're all great lads to work with, you know. It sounds like one of them tapes. Yes, he's all right. Well, I think he has, hasn't he? Well, I wouldn't have accepted probably if it had been him. I would have been too nervous. You know, I can make a fool of myself in front of him because I know him. But if it had been some other director saying do this and do that, I would have fallen apart. Well, it just is completely opposed to anything I've done in the past. No, I'm just a different person in it. You know, and I'm just nothing like people have seen me before, really. I took it because I was interested in the film and interested in trying my wings at something else. And I felt like doing something for a change, you know. And this just happened to come up at a time when I felt in that mood, you know. Well, I don't know. It's very hard to generalise. It's a strange film. It's just... I can't really say, you know. There's nothing to say. It's just about these people in the war, together and not together. You know, that's all I can think. Yes, it could be any squadron. It could be any soldiers anywhere. We've been to Germany. We were there 2 weeks, filming on the NATO grounds. Whoopee. And then we came out here. Well, I can't speak for the others, you know, but George has just got back from India, trying India. Oh, yeah, he travelled with him, I think, from India. That's his teacher. Well, yeah, that fellow that teaches him is one of the all-time greats, you know. Yes. So he was lucky that the fellow would accept him as a pupil. He doesn't just have anybody. The sitar just happens to have come in useful on a couple of tracks, but it's really nothing to do with it, you know. That's George's own scene. I don't know when you suddenly think, sitar will be nice here. Or George will obviously write more numbers where the sitar's involved if he feels like it. You know, it's great to see greats doing them, to see how they do it too. No, because they were too busy just looking at the Beatle image. Yeah, but they're always there, you know, they just come out. I like it. I've always had a bit of romantic in me, you know. I hope so, you know, we're only still fairly young, especially as musicians or songwriters. Sometimes it comes like that, you know, sometimes they say, now you must write, and now we write. But it doesn't come. Some days we sit there for days, just talking to each other, messing around, not doing anything. Well, Paul has had this idea about writing a bit with some other language, with French in it. And he just sort of had a bit of a verse and a couple of words and the idea. I think he had some other name or something. Oh, he used to talk double Dutch French, you see, just to sing the bit. Joli, Rancy, like that. So he had that, and then he just brought it along, and we sort of started fiddling around trying to get a middle eight. We pinched a little bit from somewhere and stuck it in the middle eight, and off we went. Paul completely on his own, really. We just helped finishing off the ribbons around it, you know, tying it up. Well, now it's just like a bad dream, you know. It's just way in the back of my mind somewhere, and it just comes back when you read things, just odd things that crop up now and then. Cardinal so-and-so says it's okay, or things like that, but it's really way in the back of my mind. It's a pretty amazing scene, that was. Certain things seem to whip up certain emotions, and at certain times as well. No idea. I know we've got music to write as soon as we get back, and Paul's just signed us up to write the music for a film, so I suppose it's off the plane and into bed and knock, 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 get up and write some songs. All in good time they've made it. Now what's the name of her in it? Hayley Mills, that's it, she's in it. Well, I mean, I'm incidental. The thing you got to look forward to is seeing a great film, I hope. The way it's going, it seems to be fine, and if it gets out and on the road, it should be a great film. Yeah, they'll be able to see a lot of things for the first time. So you come on a good day, well, that'll be nice. They're always there, believe me, there's always something going on. Well, I don't know, I can sit back and think, oh, well, I don't need to, I don't know what I'll do. I didn't know I was going to do this, really, till I did it. I don't think too far ahead. Well, if they feel like, if there's something to do, yeah, we'll just try our best at whatever we're doing, the main thing. This is John Lennon saying goodbye from the set in Almeria, Spain, of How I Won the War. Ta-da, well. Well, I went round Paris, the flea market, and went on a bus there and did all ththings I hadn't done for a long time. It was great. One or two people did double takes, but it was, nobody knew at all. It was shorter than this then. It didn't look like in there because I had it plastered down. Yeah, it was great. I was knocked out. Can't go in the town here, though. Well, I just heard the other day that Paul was at some place in London disguised as an Arab. I don't know whether it's true or not, but he used to say that was the only way you could really disguise yourself as an Arab. So, but if he did, he got caught. Oh, they got him because they got him in India. There's one of those shots you can see they've caught him coming out of a door, and he had a moustache. And it just said George Harrison in disguise. Yeah, it's not that easy, I mean, they still know your face, that's the thing. People that do know spot your face even if you're wearing a pith helmet. I'll smash my face in. You are here.
Well, instead of Kirill was there or something, usually people think in vicarious terms. They think, well, somebody's there. John Lennon's there, somebody. But it's not that. You are the one who's here. And so in art, usually artists give something that's an object, made object, and say, this is art, But instead of that, art exists in people's art. And so we don't believe in just making something and completing it and giving it to people. But we like people to participate and sort of all the pieces are unfinished. Well, it's just an example, but this is supposed to be a sculpture, and it's a broken cup, and an unfinished sculpture that would be just made by people, just gradually rebuilding it into a cup.
The thing is, there's no such thing as sculpture or art, and it's just a bit of, it's just words, Mm-hmm. And like she's saying, everything is art, and we're all art. Art is just a tag, like a journalist tag, but artists believe it. And that sculpture is anything, you care to name it. This is sculpture, us sitting here. This is a happening. We are here. This is art. Yeah. But if you gave that to a child, he wouldn't have any preconceived ideas, so you wouldn't have to say, this is sculpture, or this is a broken cup. You'd say, there's that. There's glue. What do you do? You stick it together.
In reply to your question, I think you can say that this is just a process of art, or process of things. Everything's just a process.
The point was, I had this idea that, like, the street maps or things that say where a place is, you are here, on those street map things. You've seen them? Right. So I thought, that'd be a good idea to have a show where you actually had the street map inside the gallery, and you went in and saw that. So I thought, now if I did that, and seeing as I've never done it before, and they've all got preconceived ideas about what I am, I thought, I'll put it on canvas, and that makes it art brackets or inverted commas. It is or it isn't, however you like it. So I put it on a big white round canvas and just had "You Are Here" that I'd written on it. And the point of the show was people went through various things to get to the thing, to the canvas, and then they reacted to it. And some of them just thought, oh yeah, no hang up, you are here. And they got a badge. I had a hat saying "For the Artist," which they put money in, or chewing gum, or all sorts of rubbish and that. Anything, I didn't mind. And then they took a badge. But I filmed them secretly with a candid camera team, and sometimes they'd go up and go, so... The whole point of the show was that was the art, that was the happening of these people reacting to it. Some people who are sort of less hung up just sort of accept it. Oh, you are here, good joke, or oh, so what?
Participating.
Well, they do participate as soon as they look at it. You see, now if you show it to a child, he'll just either take no notice of it because he knows he's here, or he'll just say, oh, you are here, it's just written on the wall or in the toilet. And the film that you're going to show is the same thing. If you show a child a film, there's no preconceived ideas about what a film should be. But most adults have all this preconception about what everything is. Yeah. We didn't bring the soundtrack because we lost it. Oh, there is a soundtrack, yes, we haven't put it on yet.
But it doesn't really matter. Any sound is sound.
This sound will do.
This sound is right.
But the point is, it's her film, I'll explain what I think about it. The point is that it's a portrait. If Renoir or any of those people had made a portrait of just somebody's face that never moves and just hangs on the wall, you accept it. Because people are used to that. But this is a portrait on film. Also, let me say that bit.
Okay.
So there's 3 minutes of film that was taken and spaced out to last an hour, very slow motion. So in 3 minutes, a lot happens to somebody's face, anybody's face. A lot of amazing things happens, a lot of movement that you never realise goes on. And in this, you've got 3 minutes under a microscope to examine anybody's face, your own. You can't be bothered sitting there for an hour looking at your own face. And amazing things happen. Your whole head changes shape. Your nose is moving. Every part of it is moving all the time, which is known. But you're not aware of this in everyday life. But in that film, you can see it. And when we showed it to her daughter, she just said, oh, look, his nose is moving.
John has a funny nose. Moving.
But show it to somebody else and say, well, a film about a face for an hour, oh, yeah, sure.
But it's not just the face, it's as John said, it's moving, and it's just that wavelength coming into you. It's like a vibration. Well, I don't expect any particular reaction, except that I was thinking of a portrait. Well, if you have a portrait in your house or something, that you always will think that it's there, and it's in your mind, so to speak. And one day you see the portrait again, and it just suddenly winks at you or something. And it sort of gives you a message. And this film goes on like that, but at one point John just sort of smiles, and that's the vibration that comes across. A message, I think just smiling is a nicer message than scorning, something like that.
The vibration is, if somebody happy, if we're sitting in your house or something, and we're feeling depressed, and somebody who doesn't feel depressed can come in and cheer us up just by his vibration or his attitude,
presence,
whatever, his presence.
Aura and all that.
If you say words, something happens, it just doesn't drop onto the floor or something. It's like radio waves. Whatever I'm saying now goes on ad infinitum, wherever it goes, because it's a waveform or a pattern. It sets up a vibration. So everything you do or think does this too. It doesn't just end here. It's like throwing a stone into water. Something happens, and every time you speak, the vibration you set up with your voice goes on till it wears out or whatever. And if you make a sound, if you hit a gong and listen to it, it goes. But it doesn't end when you can't hear it anymore. It's not. You'd have to be super sensitive to read the whole thing as well. It's not aggressive vibration. It's not over antagonistic. It's interested, but still we're still a bit freaky because it's us still on TV. So there's that vibration, but there's a calm vibration here and a hot one. You know, there's an atmosphere, and vibration is just a word you think, hippies. You know, that's what they talk. But vibration is just vibration.
As long as you participate in the thing, you start experiencing it yourself. Well, it's a painting called Hammer Nailing, and I just hate the idea of painters just making a painting with the color balance and the right texture, etc., etc. But this is just a painting that people come and hammer nailing wherever they want to, and that makes the shape of the painting. Well, they just have to find out for themselves. In other words, it's an experience. And I think, you know, basically the artist's role in SAT is extremely important in the sense that, well, now people are talking about revolution and things like that. Now, basically, I don't believe in revolution because they say, well, revolution, if nothing happens, then we have to use violence too and all that. Well, I mean, that particular one is mine. But you see, for instance, this piece here, it's called Built Around It, as you can see. This is by John. And you see, that's why I was saying that I've learned a lot from John, because I was doing all these instruction pieces to make people get involved in it and everything. And then he suddenly one day said, why don't you use this as a piece and call it Build Around It? And it's also an instruction piece to let people do something to it. But the idea is that most art, you know, people are more, sort of artists are interested in destructive things, you know, to destroy the establishment, etc. And we never thought of something like just keeping this as is and building around it. You know, the concept was so beautiful. And so I said, well, that's your piece, so why don't we do a group show, you know? And I was just going to run a show then, so I asked John to participate in that.
Well, that's her version. She was having a show at this gallery, and I knew the fellow that ran it, so it's a bit embarrassing being a Beatle anyway, going into a shop, never mind going into a gallery, because they either all leap on you thinking, oh, he's another mug, you know, like a Texan, he'll buy anything. Just like the sort of attitude of the so-called artist, you know. So anyway, I finally got to this show, and she had all these things on, like all these like hammer nail things, and that clock there, you listen to it to a stethoscope, all the things. And at first I reacted like a mug, you know, like the ones that are saying they don't get a badge, you know. I was thinking, haha, don't fool me with all this junk, you know. So then there was this ladder and a thing on the ceiling. So I climbed the ladder, and on the ceiling it said, yes. You see, so I thought, oh, I agreed then. It's okay, you know. I mean, it's like those jokes, while you're looking at here, you're dribbling down your trousers. I mean, it's all sort of connected. I mean, people get a buzz out of that in the toilet, but if you put it on in a room, it upsets them a bit, because they've got preconceived ideas about where those messages should be. And if it had said no, well, I would have carried on with my preconceived ideas about art and artists, you know, that they're all sort of, yeah, sure. But it said yes, and that was enough, you know. And then she came up and said she didn't know who I was, and was saying, do you like to hammer a nail in? It's 5 shillings. So I said,
you didn't want to pay.
I didn't have any money, so I said, I'll hammer an imaginary nail in, I'll give you an imaginary 5 shillings. And she agreed with that, she accepted that, on the same basis as we accept her work, you know. I'd accepted her work, and that was how we met, actually. Yes, because as a child I did a lot of imaginary bits, you know. I mean, it depends on the individual. I enjoyed then knocking the nail in. I enjoy knocking nails in walls to hang pictures up. But I also enjoy thinking, I'm going to do that, but I actually won't do it. I enjoy imagining doing things just as much.
Sometimes imaginary things are much nicer. I mean, when you go actually in a park, the green is not that green, etc., you know.
Well, I don't know, that's what they keep saying. That's what George's cartoon kept saying in Yellow Submarine. It's all in the mind, groovy, and all that. But it probably is all in the mind, you know, but I don't know.
Well, both are nice, I think. And also, you have to have, you know, somebody keep reminding you that you have a mind.
You're only awake when you realise you're awake. And when you're dreaming, you know, it is just as real as being, whatever happens is just as real. You know, whether you actually do die in a dream or fulfill whatever you're doing in a dream. There's nobody to tell me that it isn't as real as this now. Because how do you know, you know? A little, yes.
Yes, to free the mind.
I think maybe it's got confusing with this, because we're not all that good, and we're not all that articulate, and it's nerve-wracking being on TV and trying to explain yourself. Now, we try and explain ourselves in what we do, and I do it mainly through music, and she does it through her art like that. And it's hard to put words to it.
Well, we're not trying to explain,
but the thing,
we're just trying to communicate.
Communicate.
And communication itself is art, and art is communication. And so that made object and say, this is art, But instead of that, art exists in people's art. And so we don't believe in just making something and completing it and giving it to people, but we like people to participate and sort of all the pieces that are unfinished. And an unfinished sculpture that would be just made by people, just gradually rebuilding it into a cup.
John's Uncle Charlie Lennon is a caring, compassionate friend of Beatle fans everywhere, always ready to sit down with Beatle people and talk about the good old days with his brother Fred and young John. He is that rarest of all creatures in the phenomenal world of Beatledom, a genuine eyewitness to the formation of a legend. Here he sings an original ballad beckoning back to the first bygone days of Beatlemania in Liverpool.
Ships of the Mersey that sailed away from the shores, they have been and gone and left us, never to return no more. Oh, come back to the Mersey, to the sounds of twist and shout. We'll keep a welcome here on Merseyside, of that there is no doubt. The live bird is silent, it's got nothing to shout about. It's seen as ships come in each day, and it's seen them all go out. But now those days are over, they were the scenes of the past. Now all the live bird hears these days is the chimes of the live clock.
Geoffrey Giuliano is the author of some 30 internationally best-selling books on the Beatles, John Lennon, and other iconic musicians of the 1960s. In 2006, his book, Paint It Black, The Murder of Brian Jones, was made into a film by Stephen Woolley and Nick Powell entitled Stoned, The Wild and Wicked World of Brian Jones. It remains a cult classic and the only film bio of the Rolling Stones. Giuliano is also a veteran journalist, having written for dozens of high-profile newspapers and magazines, including The Sunday People, The Daily Mail, The News of the World, The Mail on Sunday, Playgirl, and Rolling Stone. A noted film actor, Giuliano starred in such movies as Vikingdom, Scorpion King 3, Jules Verne's The Mysterious Island, The Fifth Execution, Far Cry 3, Fire Fire Desire, among many. In addition, he hosted the long-running North American syndicated radio series, Geoffrey Giuliano's Roots of Rock, for 5 years, as well as pioneering the audiobook industry in the 1990s by authoring, narrating, and producing over 250 original, non-book-based, interview-driven productions. Giuliano's publishers included Random House, HarperCollins, Delta Entertainment, Durkin Hayes, Playaway Audio, Speechworks, and B&B Audio, among dozens more internationally. In 1998, Random House acquired his firm Tribute Audio, for which Giuliano acted as CEO and publisher for 5 years. His best-selling audiobook, That Fateful Night, True Stories of Titanic Survivors in Their Own Words, was nominated for a Grammy. In 2014, Geoffrey Giuliano founded Icon Editions and G2 Media Arts to market his updated works as well as publish new projects. As a visual artist, Geoffrey has been showing in galleries across America since 1977, garnering impressive reviews. His first professional assignment was designing several T-shirts for The Who's Pete Townsend in 1976. Geoffrey also designed and illustrated many of his original rock biographies for the biggest publishers in the world from 1984 to 2006, as well as designing for his pioneering record label, Samba Records, in the mid-1990s. From 2006 to 2011, Geoffrey was also the primary designer for the French fashion house Cotai. When Giuliano first conceived of creating his own literary imprint, Icon Editions, he became responsible for illustrating and designing 35 book covers, several hundred CDs, DVDs, as well as dozens of promotional posters, and eventually an entire collection of exclusive fashion and art. The expansive Design by Giuliano brand grew out of Geoffrey's impressive commitment to the arts and is the culmination of a lifetime's work by an extraordinarily talented and determined Renaissance man.